Did you know that King Solomon did not ask for wisdom? That's right. When the Lord visited him in the night while he was asleep and offered him anything, he did not ask for wisdom. What did he ask for? So we all know that King Solomon was a king. It's in his name, King Solomon. They go together, King Solomon. But what people don't realize is that being King Solomon, what his job actually was the high judge over Israel. He was like the Supreme Court, the highest level arbitrator. What is that? It's somebody who solves disputes, but not just any disputes. These are the most difficult disputes. To explain this better, we're going to jump to Exodus 18, the first example of this. Moses is leading the Israelites out of Egypt, and whenever there was an argument that arose, and there was a lot of them because there's thousands of people, he would have to stop and solve the matter. His father-in-law had the wisdom to say, man, this is not going well. You're just tiring yourself out and you're getting really worn down. Take some advice from me. Find a wise man who's not interested in dishonest gain from each clan and make them the ruler, the judge, somebody with integrity, over each tribe to figure out and solve and judge, to be an arbitrator over the disputes. And then if they can't figure it out, then those disputes should come to you. So having that knowledge, 1 Kings 3, when the Lord visits him, makes a lot more sense in verse 9 when he says, give your servant a discerning heart to govern your people and to distinguish between right and wrong. For who is able to govern this great people of yours? And the Lord took delight in that. He understood his shortcomings, his need for God, and also he understood his job. And he wanted to do his job effectively and right. Verse 10, the Lord was pleased that Solomon had asked for this. So God said to him, since you have asked for this, and not for long life or wealth for yourself or for the death of your enemies, but for discernment in administering justice. Again, Solomon knew that he was to be a king, a high ruler, an arbitrator over these people, discerning right and wrong and making accurate judgments. He wanted to do his job effectively. So the Lord is saying, since you asked for that, and not for all the other things that you could have asked for. Zella wanted to be in the video. So the Lord continues, I will do what you have asked. I will give you a wise and discerning heart. So it's the Lord who mentions wisdom here. And then he continues with the promises. I will give you what you have not asked for, both wealth and honor, so that in your lifetime you will have no equal among kings. And then he continues, I will also give you long life if you keep my commandments and decrees as your father David did. And I think one of the awesomest verses here that gets overlooked is verse 15, where it says, then Solomon awoke and he realized that it had been a dream. So God undeniably gave Solomon a wise and discerning heart. But oftentimes we don't actually know what that word wise means or what is wisdom. If you ask people what is wisdom, the first thing that they'll say is the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Yes, but that's not really the answer. That's just an attribute of wisdom. So let's talk about what is wisdom. So first, 2 disclaimers that I'm going to make. Number 1, I'm an idiot and a moron. You should probably not listen to anything that I'm going to say. Disclaimer number 2, I don't really know Greek and Hebrew that well, but I'm going to talk about it a little bit. Most Christians, if you were to ask them what is wisdom, the first thing that they will think of and say is the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. You're right, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, but is that what wisdom is, or is that an attribute or a character trait or a way that we would describe wisdom? When God gave Solomon a wise and discerning heart, that word wise is hacham, and it has a lot of meanings, but it basically means wise, skillful, talented in administrative work, crafty, shrewd, clever, prudent. It packages a little bit, and you have to look at the context of the other words around it. But putting that aside, and again, I just researched that like 10 minutes ago, so please don't think that I'm a Greek Hebrew expert. Just a dude on the internet. Putting that aside, I think that there are other more effective ways to describe wisdom. There's this old saying that describes wisdom really well. It differentiates between knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. Knowledge is knowing that a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is not putting a tomato in a fruit salad, and this shows that you have understanding. Again, knowledge is knowing that a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is not putting a tomato in a fruit salad, and this shows that you have understanding. So my view on it is that when somebody applies their knowledge with their understanding of life to generate a favorable outcome, that shows wisdom, whether it's in your work, your finances, your friendships, or making a fruit salad and not putting a tomato in it. We're starting to enter into the realm of earning a reputation. Solomon had a reputation. Words like wise and wisdom, they're often labels that somebody gets over time of displaying a certain character trait over and over again. For example, just take high school, which was a tough time of life for me. In high school, people have reputations for many different things. You've got popular kids, that was never me. You've got intellectuals, you've got emo people, you've got athletes, that was more my category. But basically, people earn a reputation over time based on repeatedly displaying certain character traits and behavior, the fruit of what they put out. So when King Solomon said, "Give your servant a discerning heart to govern your people and to distinguish between right and wrong, for who is able to govern this great people of yours?" I believe that the Lord gave him a wise and discerning heart, and part of that word wise was a very deep understanding of human nature. Think about the first court case that he had to solve. It's not like he just showed up one Monday morning at 9 a.m. and they're like, "Surprise, you got to deal with this two women fighting over a child." No, this had earned a reputation in the land. People were like, "Hey, this one's making its way up the ladder. This one's heading to the king." And I'm sure he was well informed about it. So he was probably out on his balcony drinking some pear juice one evening thinking about like, what do we know about mothers? Well, there's two people here. One is very corrupt, lying. The other one is a genuine mother whose heart is going to go out for this kid and will do anything for it. He goes, "I know what I'll do." He shows up to settle the case. He says, "Give me a sword." He walks up. He says, "You both claim to be the mother? Then fine. You'll both get half of this child." And he's paying attention to their reaction as he lifts that blade. And he sees one of them is corrupt and one of them is crushed. He says, "That one right there, that's the mother." Tapped into a deep understanding of human nature. We all need wisdom, and we all need to be praying for wisdom. James 1 verse 5 says that if any of us lack wisdom, which we all do, we should ask God and he'll give it to us freely without reproach. I think it's important to also understand what you're asking for, though, and to also understand that Solomon didn't flat out ask for wisdom, but he asked that he would do his job effectively as a judge over God's people. God gave him a wise heart. And I shared some of my views on how that's applying knowledge with understanding to create wisdom. And I think that wisdom is a gift from God that any of us can have and that any of us can possess. And by no means do I claim to fully know. As I said earlier, like I'm a moron. There's so much more to wisdom. There's everything from like lady wisdom. I believe there's a spirit of wisdom, a gift of wisdom. And I believe that we could spend all eternity trying to seek out God's wisdom and we'll barely even scratch the surface. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. There's links below if you'd like to give. My passion is to bring the gospel to unreached people groups. It's what the Lord has actually commissioned me and called me into. So that's the work that I'm getting ready to do in 2023. I'm going to pray us out. God, we thank you that you love us and that you give us wisdom freely and generously. And all we have to do is ask. But God, I pray that whatever our blessings are that we get from you, that we would use it for your kingdom, that we would use it to reflect your glory. That if there's anything in us that people like or admire, we can just point to Jesus and say, him. He's the one who gave it to me and he wants to give it to you too. I love you, Lord. I surrender to you. I pray your blessings over everyone. I pray for increased wisdom and favor and understanding, knowledge, all that good stuff. In Jesus' mighty name, amen.